Sooner Nation, Thunder Nation, we are back. This is the Just Okay Sports Podcast. It's just Oklahoma sports. And like we always say, it's more than just an okay podcast. And so we are grateful that you're along for the ride. And it is the week that has been years in the making. We finally kick off our SEC schedule. First SEC game as actual members of the SEC against the Tennessee Volunteers. And so like we said on the podcast today, we have a cousin. His name's Shane. He is a big Vols fan. We tried to get him on. He goes, look, man, I know my stuff, but I don't know my stuff. But my buddy Kevin, he's the man. Like, he's the one that's going to give you all the details.
Put the pressure on.
And we got our man Kevin Hendricks here on the night. So, man, how are you?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me. And I tell you, before we get off, I just want to say that, I'm happy that Oklahoma Sooners is part of the SEC now.
Heck
and
yeah.
We got a lot in common. I think we got great fan bases, passionate fan bases, very loyal.
Yeah.
And but one thing we do have a lot in common is that we don't like Texas. So so we're going to hit it off just fine.
That's exactly right. That's exactly.
We're the real UT.
That's right. I have enjoyed it feels like the SEC kind of as a whole has already kind of taken to a disdain to Texas. And so I think we've appreciated that as a Sooner fan base. So no, that's awesome, man. But well, obviously big game, but I wanted, before we get in this game and start talking all the stuff. So 10 years ago, Tennessee rolled into here. 9 years ago, we rolled over to Knoxville. But I'm just curious if, you've kind of got a real pulse there on the fan base and those kinds of things. Just what kind of impression Sooner Nation left on Vols Nation when you guys got to come and experience Norman and all those things for the first time a decade ago?
I had a lot of friends that went, and I got a lot of friends that are going and already up there right now on their RVs, and they loved it. It was very respectful. Good. They loved the fan. Once they get together and tailgate, it's all fun. And like I said, you guys are going to fit in just fine in the SEC. Oh, and I had a lot of positive comments about the last time we went up there, other than getting our butts whooped. But we're still bitter about when you guys came to Knoxville and we had first and goal at the 1 yard line and couldn't get it in, and then we settled for a field goal on the half-inch line, and when we had the genius Butch Jones. So we're still very bitter about that game. We feel like we let you off the hook on that one.
Oh goodness, that game, we all felt dead to rights in that game, and as they like to say in Sooner Nation land, Sooner magic just somehow, some way happened, and we pulled a rabbit out of a hat on that one for sure.
Baker showed out. So
second half he did. The first half y'all went, yep, he's a walk-on. So that was an incredible one, and so pretty wild. And then as far as for us being rookies in the SEC and all those things, being a Volunteers fan for so many years, I got to assume you've gone to at least a couple road games.
Yeah, I've gone to a few venues. I've been to, of course, Vanderbilt. That's in my backyard here.
Okay.
But Vanderbilt's actually a fun place to go because you got Nashville.
Yeah.
So you've got so much to do downtown Nashville. So that's that's a destination place for a lot of teams, even though Vanderbilt's not that good, but it's still a destination place and tickets are easy to get.
Yeah.
I've been to Auburn, I've been to Alabama, I've been to LSU. LSU's fun.
Wow.
But they enjoy it. You have a good time with them, but if you beat them, it's not fun walking out of that stadium. It's it can get kind of hairy.
I would imagine.
But it's great places to eat, and Baton Rouge, and you're so close to New Orleans, so that's a fun venue. I'm old enough that we used to play Alabama in Legion Field in Birmingham back in the day.
Okay.
So that's where they upgraded Tuscaloosa there, and now they got a beautiful stadium there. But that's always a fun trip, and that's where I live. It's not too far away. It's about 4.5 hours. So, but Auburn's a cool venue. It's like out in the middle of nowhere. Wow. You're driving to South Alabama, and there's a beautiful campus right there. But I've never been to Georgia. I've always wanted to go to Athens. I've heard a lot of good things, but the arrogance of that's it's hard to get down there and have grown men bark at you the whole time. So
Oh
it's
gosh.
I'll let you, my buddy Shane. I'll let him tell a story about him and a Georgia fan one time. So
Oh
we'll say
goodness.
that for another day. But
Yeah. Well, and I would, I think so far for us, it's kind of been the same with everybody. I know when you guys came to Norman, everybody was blown away. When they went to Knoxville, they were blown away.
mhm,
Me and my best friend actually got to go watch the national championship game between OU and Florida, which was in Miami. So it was crawling with Florida fans. We were
yeah,
outnumbered, 20-1 at that deal, but we had a great time. They were spirited, but it wasn't anything ridiculous and out of control. It was, it was good fun the
yeah.
whole way through. Now, our
I've been to
experience at the Sugar Bowl with LSU, that's a completely different,
completely different thing.
boy, that's a different deal.
When
I
they start getting lubricated real early.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. And then the Cajun comes out. So
Yeah.
we'll see. I'll be very interested to see how many OU fans will make the trip this year to Death Valley to watch that game.
So
Which
you guys have them on the at LSU. So
yeah,
that'll be a fun trip.
yeah.
Oh,
So
that'll be a big crowd, and that's a very winnable game too. So
well, looks like it right now anyway. So although they kind of started out the gate slow last year and turned it on, it felt like the back half of the season too. So we'll
well,
see
they
what
also
they
had a Heisman Trophy
yeah,
winner. So I
that's
don't think
true.
they had that this year. So
No, absolutely not. So, well, let's get a little bit to this year. So, I'm curious, you know, 3 games in now, it feels like, I mean, a lot of people are saying Tennessee might be one of the top 3 teams in the country. They're riding high. No one's even touched them. Nico looks like he's everything that's been advertised, but it felt like, at least from the little bit that we could gather here, maybe the Vol fan base was a little bit like, we like Josh Heupel, but this year is really going to kind of prove whether or not he's really, really the guy. And it feels like 3 games in, it's like, yeah, we've got our guy. Like
yeah,
we're in good standing. Is that a fair take on kind of where Josh
I
stood with
think
the
it's
fan
fair for
base?
some of the fans. I think I've been sold for a while. We went through wandered through the desert for 15 to 20 years with coaches that were incompetent.
Yeah.
So once we got Josh, uh, we were skeptic, because we thought, maybe Danny White was hiring his buddy, and that, but after, when we went 11-2 and won the Orange Bowl and was number one at one point, our biggest question mark with Josh was, can he recruit on an SEC level? And right now he has
Yeah.
recruited really good. We love his style. We love his demeanor.
Mm.
Uh, the way he handles himself, and he just seems like he prepares,
Yeah.
and he doesn't say stupid stuff like Butch used to say, or like Jeremy Pruitt used to say.
Oh Lord, that guy,
So
man.
yeah, we call him Skull Can, oh Skull Can. So we're very lucky, and I know Josh probably wasn't number one on the list when we were looking for coaches.
Mm.
Us Tennessee fans, we're arrogant. We think we can get
Right.
the number one coaches out there, but once we settled in and started realizing what we had, I'm sold.
That's
I'm a
awesome,
big fan of Coach Heupel.
man. Well, it's exciting. And I think 99.9% of Sooner fans are ecstatic to see what Josh is doing there. Even though it was a rough ending for him when he was the OC
Yeah.
here and it didn't go as well. But he was young and skyrocketing up the ranks. And, you know, I hope anyway that he would look back and see that as not something he wanted, but something that really helped him become where he's at now,
I
and
think
mold him
he's
into that.
mentioned that this week, that it's made him a better coach.
Yeah.
And but that's what everybody's talking about this week, and he has kept it on the back burner. He's been very humble about it, and they had the coaches call in show last night, and ball calls, and and a couple of fans were asking about it, and he just, you could tell he really didn't want to talk about it, and
Yeah.
he just wants to focus on the game itself and
Sure.
and then the players. So
Yeah.
it's going to be a fun atmosphere.
Absolutely. So, well, so coming in this game, give us the pulse from the Vols fan base. Is this no one's worried about this game at all? They feel highly confident there's no problem, or are there a few things maybe that Vols fans are looking at going, man, this could be a problem, or could slow us down, or could cause some
Well,
issues? Or
to give you an idea about the pulse of the Vol fans, when we're the highest of highs and we are all confident, we still have that BVS. We still have BVS, and that is battered Vol syndrome. So once we think that everything's on paper, we should be rolling. We should be rolling, and then we get beat by Florida last year.
uh,
So we're very confident. We think we're going to play good. We got a quarterback, but there's always that in the back of our mind that that BVS starts creeping in, that
yeah,
battered ball syndrome. Because
yeah,
like I said, we went through 15 to 20 years of hell,
yeah,
hell.
yeah.
And when I went to school at the University of Tennessee, Coach Fulmer was there, and we
Mm-hmm.
dominated.
Right.
We won back-to-back SEC championships. We won a national championship.
Yeah.
We the only team that would we owned Alabama. We
Yep.
owned Georgia. We won 9 in a row over Georgia.
Wow.
So then we went through Lane Kiffin one year, and Butch Jones, Derek Dooley, Butch Jones, and then Jeremy Pruitt. So it was just like, what are we just cursed?
Yeah.
But I think we're out of the wilderness. So
Yeah.
we see a lot of positive going on now, and a lot of confidence.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a good matchup. I think the X factor for Oklahoma, though, is we're playing at night on the road in a hostile environment, and our quarterback has never, we played neutral field. He's played on some neutral sites, but he's never played on a true SEC road game. So.
Right. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see that effect. So, from everything you see from the stats, we were talking even pre-pod last week. It just felt like it was a scrimmage against a junior high somewhere locally last week is kind of what it felt like, right? But, for I think any fan that watches the game and tries to kind of pick things apart, there's always something, I mean, for me, week 1, we went 51-3, and I'm like, man, this was awful. This was bad. This was good. And so, even in all the dominance that you've seen so far, what would you say are maybe some of the areas that you look at and go, these have to improve for us to really ensure a win in Norman this week?
Well, we've been very successful at running the ball, very successful. The wide receivers we haven't really showed out yet with our wide receivers. And it's been kind of like in the background. Are we going to, when is it, that's really going to have a big breakout? So I like to see some of our wide receivers us throwing the ball a little bit downfield, a little bit more, because the one thing we will do is we will screen you to death. If your DBs are off, they're going to we're going to just quick outs to our receivers and block out front and let them take off.
Yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see how much we do downfield. Now there was a Nico against NC State. We beat him by 41 points, but he did have 2 interceptions, and one of them was right over the middle, about a 20-yard, right over the middle, just a very bad throw. So he was trying to force something.
Yeah.
Force something there. So if you guys has got what's the guy's name? Billy Bowman.
Yeah.
He, that guy will take advantage of a throw like that. So
yeah,
we got to be very careful with that. But we one thing if I'm you, I'm looking out for is if it's 3rd and long or 3rd and 8 to 15
right.
They like to do that little Kansas City Chiefs shuffle pass a little to our Dylan Sampson, our running back.
Yeah.
So sometimes that blows up, and sometimes it really works out well. So that's something to keep an eye out for. That when you're in 3rd down situations, there.
There you go. Well, and it's interesting that you say that. That was a staple play for the 2000 team in Norman when Josh was the quarterback here. That little
Yeah.
shuttle to Quentin Griffin, man, you can go back and you go watch highlights of that 2000 squad. You'll see that play in there a lot. And it was kind of the same, a little bit of feast or famine back in those days when they were playing that game. So that's for sure. Now, it sounds like the defensive line's considered one of the best groups in the country. It sounds like it's got a couple of high draft picks in there, maybe even a top pick in the draft overall on that
Yeah.
line. How do you feel like the secondary has looked thus far, or have they even had a chance because
They
of,
haven't really been tested. And
yeah,
that's something that Jackson Arnold could really take advantage of if he has time,
yeah,
because these guys, we've got new corners. We lost everybody last year,
wow,
and whether transfer or graduated or went on to the pros, but they were not that productive. So
mm,
that was that was our Achilles heel last year, was our
okay,
secondary. So we got a transfer in McCoy from Oregon State who's really looked good. We got a sophomore in Ricky Gibson at the other corner who is very long arms, and he's very physical. So he's
mm,
looked good. We've got a safety who is a walk on, who is like a fifth year senior, and he's Will Brooks. He had an 85-yard interception return against NC State. So
wow,
he's but they really haven't been tested. If I'm Oklahoma, I'm not I'm not dropping back to throw. I'm quick slants, get the
mm-hmm,
ball out quick, quick, quick.
right,
And I think I've seen where Arnold is pressured a lot. That's where he makes his mistakes. That's where he kind of gets in hurry and is a little bit more inconsistent. I saw a stat where if you blitz him or put some pressure on him, of course, and most quarterbacks, if you
yeah,
do that too,
yeah,
but if I'm Oklahoma, I'm doing quick stuff around the
mm,
edge, maybe some jet sweeps around the edge, because we're vulnerable when teams do that.
mm-hmm,
NC State did that the very first drive of the game. Were quick slants, quick screens. They were moving the ball. They get across the 50, and then we stopped them, and they didn't do nothing the rest of the game. So
wow,
they kind of banded it too. I was like, they took
wow,
about 5 minutes off the clock right off the bat, and I was
wow,
like, they got a good game plan here. And then they kind of abandoned it, and then it snowballed after that. So
yeah. And that's how it generally happens. So you made a mention of that, and that was one thing I was curious of. I watched a good bit of the NC State game, and like you said, you could definitely tell they were really looking to get the ball to quick things, not they definitely weren't holding the ball long. And so has that kind of been the formula of every team that's played y'all? Because I think the thing that kind of shocked me just going through the stat and box score watching and not really breaking tape down early on was the sack numbers weren't nearly as high as I anticipated them to be for this team with as good as that D line is. But is it been more so that just teams are not even giving them an
yeah,
opportunity to get back there?
teams. It looks like they're trying to get it out. We James Pierce, who's going to be a top 5 pick
Right.
in consensus, he hadn't had a sack all year, and
Wow.
that's where we're waiting. Like, is this going to be the game where he eats? We'll
Uh-huh.
see.
Yep.
But I've been watching Tennessee football for a long time, and this defensive line is one of the deepest defensive lines I could remember. It dates back to maybe back in the early 2000s when we had John Henderson and Albert Haynesworth and those guys. But they rotate. They will rotate. If I'm Oklahoma too, I'm doing a little. I know a lot of people say they ought to eat up the clock, but they
Right.
might be to their advantage if they do a little hurry up, because so we can't sub, because we
Right.
sub a lot of the defense line, but we go deep.
Yeah.
We and that's our deepest position, no
Yep.
doubt about it, defensive line.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, you've kind of made mention of that. How do you feel about the matchup as far as, I guess it'd be on twofold, right? BV being a Brent Venables, that is, being a kind of a legend on the defensive end, going against Heupel to some degree, but then also just, you have any concern about him being able to cause some confusion
Oh
and some
yes,
discomfort
I've
for
got a lot of
Nico?
concern. I've got a lot of concern. Well, if you look at the history, Coach Heupel's done a great job here at
Mhm.
Tennessee, but when we go on the road, That
Mm-hmm.
offense is the numbers they go down.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at when we were number one in the country 2 years ago, and we went to South Carolina,
Yeah.
and they destroyed us.
Mm.
So they hung 60 points on us. So
Man.
it was awful.
Yeah.
But they I do think they will have. You guys got a good defense.
Yeah.
So I do think I don't think it's going to be we're going to be up and down the field,
Mm.
like we're like the first three games. I
Right.
think, our punter's punted two times all year. He's only
Wow.
punted twice all year. So I think he's going to have a few punts,
Yeah.
but yeah, so yeah, he's only punted twice all year.
That's crazy. What a
Uh,
stat. That's the in the weed stats we're looking for, Sooner Nation. I love that one. 2 punts
yeah,
on the season for the punter. That's crazy.
yeah, our defense have not given up a touchdown all year
Wow.
either. So
Yeah.
we're Uh, NC State scored one touchdown on an interception return. So Nico got his arm hit and the ball fluttered up. The guy caught it,
Uh-huh.
ran it back for a touchdown. So,
Goodness.
people are saying, well, Tennessee hasn't played anybody,
Yeah.
which is true. We haven't played anybody.
Sure.
NC State was ranked when we played them,
Yep.
but I think you could tell they shouldn't have been ranked.
Yeah.
But Tennessee has taken care of business. They didn't
Right.
mess around those 3 games.
Mm-mm.
So they took care of business and they put them away.
Yeah.
Nico's only played one full game so far. He's set out the half the first game and the last game and set out the whole second half. So we played a lot of guys, so we're healthy.
That's awesome.
And that's what I was wanting to talk to you about is, I've been reading up on you guys. Sounds like your offensive line is pretty beat up.
Yeah, they're extremely beat up. You've got your starting center, backup center. They're listed as probable this week. I mean, based on what I'm hearing, I don't know, man. I think the guy that started Hickman, if he's playing and he's going,
Now
there's
he was
no
a
way.
transfer, right? He's from
Yeah,
SMU.
SMU. I don't think he's gonna be 100%. And then I think the backup Everett, he was actually injured in spring and has been trying to get healthy this whole time. So how in shape is he? How game ready is he? I have no idea. With him, our right tackle is hurt. Our left guard is hurt. I mean, we're moving our left tackle into guard, playing the backup left tackle right now is kind of what it's looking like we're going to do. Play our regular right tackle and right guard and hope that our third string center can hang on is what it's been the last 2 weeks. And so,
See, when I see that and then I hear about the matchups and look at on paper, I mean,
yeah,
our defensive line on paper should have a good game.
right.
But you know how paper is. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I can see that's a good matchup for Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what about one thing that I've noticed? Jackson Arnold. He leads you guys in rushing.
Mm-hmm.
So, once we start getting that pursuit in there, if he could just take off, that's hurt us in the last few years.
Right.
Is running quarterbacks is kind of it hurt us, So who's going to spy on him? Who's going to contain him? Because if he starts running loose,
right,
then that's going to be some trouble.
Yeah, and he's sneaky athletic. Last week he ran one where it fooled the cameraman, it fooled the stadium, it fooled everybody, and he's 30 yards down the field before anybody notices, but the free safety noticed, and that's the only guy that could get the angle on him. And 47 yards later, he finally cut him off, and really Jackson just went ahead and just carved out of bounds. I think if he'd have put on the brakes and tried to keep going, he might gone around him, but smart decision not to take a hit, those kinds of things. His background apparently in junior high was actually playing running back, so he's got a little bit of that in him. It'll be interesting, tape wise. The first 2 weeks, they probably ran about 90% inside zone run game, which is really shotgun power run game is what I like to call it. You're just kind of shooting off and going, but there's no movement. The linebackers aren't really having to think too much. They've really just got to fit and they'll stay in their gap. They can control it. And then last week they put a lot of gap scheme. They put some pin pull. They put some GT counter in. They ran a lot of variations of the run game last week, and finally started to get some creases in the run game a little bit more. So, but I'm with you. I mean, as far as the biggest matchup on the field is obviously the strength of your team is the defensive line. And
Yeah,
right now, the
defensive line.
weakness for us is offensive line. And then, I think it works out really good for you guys as well. Even being an OU fan, we're also down. Our 4 of our top 5 wide receivers
I
have been
noticed
out.
that. Is Nick
Now,
Anderson playing?
that's the rumor. That's the rumor. Now, till I see it, I'm not believing nothing. I've seen him warm up for 2 weeks and been told he's coming back, and he hadn't played. I don't know if that's making sure he's healthy. I have no idea, but
Is he outside or is he a slot or is
he's
he moved
outside. Yeah,
around?
he's 6'4", 205, 210.
Okay. All right.
Can run like the wind. Matter of fact, you might remember the running back that played for Oklahoma against Georgia in the Rose Bowl, Rodney Anderson,
Yeah.
that ran for like 200 yards in that game. That's his older brother.
Okay.
And so they're siblings that way, and they're built about the same. They're just freak athletes. We've heard from early on he's one of the best wide receivers out there, but same thing as true freshman year, he couldn't get healthy for the longest time, and then finally did and got going. Burks will be healthy. They did list Andrell Anthony is probable on their little chart that they turned in for, whatever the new injury
Yeah.
report / availability
Yeah, I saw
report.
that.
Sorry,
I was looking
availability.
at it last night. I was
Um,
looking at your offensive line. I was like,
yeah.
who's on there?
Yeah. So they're listing a bunch of guys as probable or questionable, but again, we'll see. But Andrell Anthony being on there was interesting as probable. Same thing, tore an ACL in the OU Texas game last year. So he's still only about 9.5, 10 months off of ACL. So, the question is just mentally, where is he? And even physically, is he really back to full speed? Now, if he is, he's going to test you. A
Yeah.
lot of people forget that going into the OU Texas game last year, he was the leading wide receiver in the country. And so he was actually farther along than Nick Anderson was. And then he went out and Nick Anderson kind of took over the back half of the season. So if there's a way you can get those guys back and really playing true football, it could be something. If not, again, we're going to be to our 5th and our 6th wide receiver in the game playing.
Well, if you got a good slot guy, you could probably take advantage of those quick slants I'm talking about because our star position, we've got a first-time starter in Christian Harrison out there, and then they rotate him with a true freshman, Boo Carter, who is going to be a superstar. He is going to be but he's a freshman.
Right.
And he wants to make the big play, and he's over pursue. So you can take advantage of that position. Christian Harrison, his dad was Rodney Harrison. He used to play for the Patriots, and so they've been playing good, but like I said, they haven't been tested. So the slot guy can have be interested in if they can take advantage of that because of the inexperience there.
Yeah, and that's going to be the Deion Burks matchup. And since he's arrived, he's a transfer out of Purdue. And since he's arrived on campus, he has blown everybody away, and he's started to slowly but surely really kind of impose his will the last couple of weeks, making some plays. So be interesting to see that matchup without a doubt. So I think it'll come down to those things. So, well, Kevin, where you got this thing going? You got this. What's your prediction on this game and how it's going to unfold for us this Saturday?
Well, I think it's going to start out tight. I think it's going to be turnovers is going to be huge. Who's going to have that advantage? I think our defensive line will take over in maybe the third quarter. I think you have to run the ball against us to beat us. And we're going to run the ball. That's what Josh does. Everybody wants to talk about Nico and our wide receivers and the hurry up offense, but we don't. We run the ball. And it's nothing fancy. It's just right up the middle. That A gap, boom, right up the middle.
Yeah.
And we've got a really healthy, big offensive line, and I just think I hate doing the predictions on scores, and especially on an Oklahoma Sooner podcast. So I'm not gonna insult you on that.
No.
But I think Tennessee with our offensive line with our defensive line. I think
Absolutely.
they start, but I really like your linebacker you have. I like your safety that you got.
Yep.
And I think Venables is going to have something cooked up for Josh. I think you're the X factor is your crowd. You know, how are we going to react to, you know, being on the road with a hostile crowd on prime time, ABC, you know, the game of the week.
Yeah.
So, you know, if we could survive some turnovers, and I think we could pull away a little bit in the second half.
Sure. Before I give I'll tell you my prediction as well, but I wanted to come back. I forgot I wanted to ask you about that. You had mentioned, and it's been actually talked about here the last couple of days, is, you know, since Josh has been there, some of that road dip that they seem to have a little bit on the road from a fan base. Like, do y'all feel like Josh has gotten conservative on the road? The team's just not focused on the road. Has there been something that y'all see that you kind of question when that's coming up?
Well, I don't know about the focus. I know in 2022, we went down to LSU and we beat the pants off of them. I mean, we knocked them naked and hid their clothes. And so that's when everybody's like, Tennessee's for real, you know, they're for real. And it was early in the season. And then the worst thing that happened to us that year is us. They put us at number 1 and Georgia at number 2, and then we went down to Georgia when the first playoff rankings came, and Georgia was number 1 in the AP poll, and then we flipped and we went down to Georgia, and the crowd was crazy, and we didn't have a chance. And then we had visions of playoffs in our head. Then we went down to South Carolina, and it looked like we never played football before. I don't know if it was our leadership, it was our preparation, but there's something going on when we go on the road, and we do have some issues. I think Josh is something like 6 and 7 on the road in SEC play or something like that. So I mean, what makes me the most nervous this weekend is going to first SEC game ever for Oklahoma. The crowd's going to be nuts.
Oh yeah.
And let's see how we react. Now, I do like our leadership on this team. I think Josh has mentioned that several times, how he really likes the leadership on this team. And Nico, he has mentioned that how he likes to play on the road, and he likes it when the crowd's booing at him, and he likes, you know, it makes him, you know, that much motivated. But that could be a, you know, redshirt freshman just talking. So
yeah,
we'll see.
No, that's interesting. So,
but I got a little nugget for you. I'm going to show you, tell you something. You're going to see Tennessee score when they score, especially when they score fast, and you'll see one of our offensive linemen on the extra point accidentally get hurt, and he's down for a while, and then the announcers will be going like, "Oh, I hope he's all right." Well, he's just he's trying to get the defense time to rest before they go back on the field. Because if we go 3 and out and then we score and then we get the ball back and score quick, it's just something to look out for. It's a little gamesmanship that they like to do.
Nice.
I don't know if you might hear my dog barking. That's my blue. I do have a blue tick hound. So
come on, let's go.
He's barking in Rocky. His name is Rocky. So
of course
Rocky
he is.
Top.
Of course he is.
He's barking in the background there.
That's awesome. Well, no, I'm with you. I think Venable and Zach Alley, I think will be an X factor a little bit in this game. It's a name that a lot of people aren't talking about, you know, but he is officially the D coordinator here now. And while he is very much a disciple of Brent Venables, he does some things differently. And so I think as Josh tries to dig through that tape of what Brent Venables has done in the past, I think there's going to be some new wrinkles in the midst of that's going to cause some problems and give some issues there. And so I think
I'm a big fan of Brent. I mean,
oh man,
when we were looking for a coach when we were looking for during Pruitt, when we got hired Pruitt, he was on my list. I said I wanted Venables. I want Venables. I was telling all my buddies that's who I want. And then we settled for Gump, old Skull Can.
Skull Can. I love that. But yeah, I've got you guys winning by double digits in the game. And again, when I look at these games, you know, for me, it's what's the strength of both teams, and then what's the weakness of the other team. And when I see that your strength lines up with our weakness, that usually is not a recipe that
Yeah.
works well either way. If your passing game was the number one thing in the country and our DBs are terrible, that tends to lead to bad things almost every time.
Yeah.
And so I do think that our O line just being where it is right now, I think they'll try to scheme a few things up, but that's only going to last for so long. At the end of the day, this game still comes down to beating the man across from you, and I think eventually that's just going to wear down. And the more the offense can't move, the defense is going to be on the field longer and longer and longer. And while we are extremely deep at D line, we're extremely deep at linebacker. I think you'll
You
see
got a
six.
Tennessee transfer there, Terry,
Yeah,
that came from DJ
yeah.
Terry there and he was in good standing with us. He was a good player. I guess he saw the depth of, we got so many defensive linemen. He decided to move on. But
Yeah.
we're going to run the ball. That Dylan Sampson, he leads SEC in rushing, and
Yeah.
he's our poor man's Alvin Kamara. He can catch the ball. He can run. Now our backup is a walk on.
Mm.
He had scholarships to Coastal and some other places, but he's from Knoxville. He wanted to go to
Wow.
Tennessee, and he is
Love it.
very impressive. But he is a walk on. Well,
Yeah.
we did have a big 4-star Cam Seldon who's been concussed the last 2 weeks,
Oh,
so he
wow.
hasn't played. I think he's going to play this week, but that Deshaun Bishop is kind of uh kind of outplayed. He's played so good the last few weeks that I think he's going to probably get the ball when Dylan's not when Dylan's not playing. So
Very good.
we're going to run the ball, and another thing to look out for is that we've got 3 tight ends now, so we've got more depth at tight
Yep.
end that Josh has ever had. And against NC State, they went to these 2 tight end sets, and they were
Mm-hmm.
moving those tight ends around
Yeah.
and throwing it to them and we were running it, using those tight ends.
Yeah.
So we might not go 4 wide or 3 wide. We might go 2 tight end
Yeah.
sets. So he'll probably mix it up.
Oh, yeah. And I think he'll throw everything at the book, I think we're right in lockstep, which is always interesting. And, when everybody sees it the same from opposite ends of the spectrum. But, I do think if somehow, some way the defense can frustrate Nico or the offense and the crowd can just continue to be nuts or create a turnover, you just never know what that momentum can do in the
Yep.
game. I think that is a major X factor in the game. And then, I know he's downplayed it. I will be very interested to see. I have also said I think a major X factor in this game is really where Josh Heupel is emotionally about his time at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Because I do know just as little as 2 years ago, there was a player being inducted into a college football Hall of Fame, and Bob Stoops had to make a public announcement that he would not attend the party so that Josh would, because he knew if
Yeah.
he was there, Josh wouldn't come. And
Yeah.
so if his rage takes over and just wanting to prove a point, I think that could in the long run be benefit, to Oklahoma. Whereas if he stays composed and really makes it just about the X's and O's and does the job, it'll be that. And I think he will, but it'll be interesting to watch how that unfolds,
Yeah. He made
throughout
the
the night.
comment that he said, "I've never been on that other side, never been in that other locker room. I've never been on the other side of the field." He said,
Yeah.
It's going to feel weird.
Yeah. But and I know this, the fans are excited to have him back. There's been a lot of 2000 national championship get-togethers. They've had several ex-player get-togethers and have always hoped that Josh would come, and he's never has, and everybody understands it. But he is going to get. It will be interesting too to see his emotions in that, because I think the fans are going to go nuts to have him back in the house. I mean, we are
Yeah.
where we are right now today in large part because of him, and nobody denies that and is unaware of that. And so it'll
Well,
be,
time heals all wounds,
yeah,
so it'll just take some time. But he's done a lot for that program, and
Yep.
cooler heads will prevail at one point. So
At some point, yeah, it'll get there and be good.
but I tell
So
you, as a Tennessee fan, I've got a lot of my buddies. I got a buddy in an RV already there sending me videos. They're all excited about it. I mean, we're happy that, I'm old school. I didn't like it where we're adding all these teams and all
yeah,
these super conferences. But if we're
yeah,
going to add teams, let's add Texas and Oklahoma, man,
yeah.
because and I hope we don't add any more. I hope we just leave it alone. But I think it's great that you guys are in the conference, and that
Yeah,
we're going on you guys are going to get to experience all these other
yeah.
road games now in the SEC, what it's all about. And
Heck
I tell you,
yeah.
it's a tough conference, man,
Yep,
and not
yep.
just football. I
Yeah,
mean, you name it.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's a it's a tough one. So
Softball's got baseball is unbelievable. Basketball's gotten better every
hey,
year.
hey,
It's
we're riding. We can talk baseball all day long, bro.
oh man, well, I'm not as versed on it. I've
We just
kind
won
of
the national title, so we're
I
we're very
know
happy.
you're happy on that one. We got happy that we just made the World Series a couple seasons ago.
Yeah.
So our guys doing a good job, and then obviously Patty will bring great softball to add to a great
Oh,
softball
y'all
conference.
dominate. Y'all will
Oh man.
dominate.
Well, this will finally be the year they're doing some rebuilding. That core of Jada Coleman and Kinsey Hansen and all of them are finally gone. And I mean, yes, they've recruited well and all the things, but those were some one of a kind athletes. So we'll see. But man, we're the same way. And man, relay to all your friends. I mean, like I said, for everybody that went to Knoxville, those years ago and had fans here, I mean, y'all have come out as one of the most respected fan bases that we've interacted with. I think we've got a good relationship with Bama fans. Like I said, I think the only ones we have bad taste in our mouth with is Texas and LSU thus far, and everybody
Well,
else has
I can understand why.
been pretty good.
But my advice to Oklahoma fans is don't look at Twitter or X as your judgment
Yes.
of Tennessee fans or any fan base, really.
Yeah,
I mean,
exactly.
that's just a 12 to 20% of what go to the games,
Yeah,
experience the tailgates, talk to
yeah,
folks, because
yeah,
we're very welcoming.
yeah.
We always enjoy talking to the other fan bases. We have a good time and after the game's over, we shake our hands and we just go home. So
Heck yeah. That's the way it ought to be. So well, Sooner Nation, there you have it. We wanted to get on ground level. Again, we always tell you guys, we're not journalists, we're not anything, we're fans. And so we wanted to get a fan to come on and break this thing down as we, again, start a whole new era of Sooner Nation football coming into the SEC. And so, man, Kevin, thanks so much for joining us, man. We sure
appreciate you,
appreciate
brother.
it.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.